So, what skills do you think that you've had that kind of led you within 4 years to get to lead consultant?
Yeah, I think you need to have good communication skills first off, because you need to first of all be able to interpret what someone's needs are from a solution and make sure that you're delivering it to the spec that they're expecting. And as a consultant, when I first joined with Esri Ireland, the skills I already had at that point was probably good attention to detail, the ability to adapt in a situation, and the ability to communicate well verbally with my colleagues, say. But what the skills that I've had to learn or maybe develop on since that point is, I would say, being able to deal with, say, just being able to deal with a higher workload, the stresses that come with more responsibility, I suppose. Um, you also have to be good at troubleshooting because you'll always have a plan, but you know, curveballs will always come up. There might always be something that you weren't, possibly expecting, or something has to change the course due to a limitation in, say, the client's infrastructure, or due to a limitation with the data or something like that. Just being able to think on your toes. But really, I think it all comes down to being able to prioritize as well. The technical skill that you need, of course, is there, but I feel like that's very much nearly the same amongst all of our colleagues, really, at Esri Ireland. I feel like the difference is when you start to take on more responsibility as you grow up, maybe through the roles, because you're actually less hands on and it
Yeah.
becomes more about the bigger picture. It's really just being able to hone in on what's really important and what are the non negotiables. What do you need to really deliver at the end of this? Because I think what we can maybe be guilty of sometimes when we're working on a project, especially if it's a passion project and it's something we really love, is you could spend all day at it and you could throw all the resources at it in the world. But really, with the environment that we work in, people have a limited budget. They don't have all the resources in the world to throw at, different deployments, or sometimes you're under a real time pressure. Like, for example, when COVID was rampant, I don't mean to bring it all back or anything, but when COVID was rampant, we were working on a data hub, and those releases had to go out 2, 3 times a day. Decisions had to be made quickly. We couldn't make everything visually perfect, or we didn't have time to kind of think about some of those things sometimes. Like, the really important thing was that people got the information. It's being able to make those decisions like that, I think, and maybe understanding that you're not necessarily going to get all the wins all the time, but what are the non-negotiables, and what can you live with and what can't you live with, or what can you live without? The other thing I think you need as well as a lead consultant is a bit of an understanding for maybe potentially new consultants coming into the business, being aware that everyone comes from different backgrounds, everyone's experience is different. For example, I have a biology background. A lot of my colleagues would be very much developer backgrounds. So I think it's really just important not to make assumptions at where people are at, that you kind of establish that we're on the same page or we're not. And if we're not, what do we need to do to get to the same page before we progress, so that you're not leaving people behind, or that you're not potentially misinterpreting what someone is saying, because they might think that what you're saying has a different meaning. So I think just establishing that baseline of understanding as well is really, really important, because otherwise you can both be saying, yeah, I get you. Yeah, I understand. That's great. But actually, it could be going two completely different directions
Yeah.
in your own head. And then that goes both ways. I was kind of saying really about consultants at the beginning there, but I think that goes for all sorts of relationships, or, tangents within the business and with clients as well. It's
Oh,
really
yeah.
important to make sure that it's a very clear understanding in everyone's part.
Sometimes I think some people can think that they are talking in a way that makes sense for them, um,
Hmm.
which is fine. But then, depending on, sometimes I like to think of it as everyone's brains work differently. And so, like, the way you're communicating to me, I process that maybe differently compared to how you're actually saying it. I definitely deal with that at my job as well. And I think that's how you thrive, even as a team. That if you can understand or be somewhat of a chameleon of how your team how your teammates work because everyone's not going to think the same way. And
Absolutely. And
I
wouldn't
could,
it be boring if we all did?
yeah. And actually, I was like, I could go off on a tangent because previous jobs, they all thought everyone thought the same way. But I was like, well, we could be here
Mm.
for an hour on that. But I was like, now I'm
Well,
just not, now I'm going to start venting. Um,
I
but
just
yes,
want to piggyback one bit off you said there
yeah.
because, the way you said, like, you're totally right. Everyone's brains work differently and we all have different strengths. Um, and that's one thing we actually did in work was, I don't know if you've heard about Strengths Finder. It's kind of like a quiz that you can do basically, right? And it's you answer like these multiple choice questions. So as a company, we all did this Strengths Finder. And what's really cool about the result is you get like a summary of your 5 top strengths. But what you also get is like, these are the Strengths Finder types that you'd work really well with because they have these qualities that, you might not be so great at. So you're a really good team with these kind of, people that have these strengths. Also said that you might have difficulty understanding some people who have these strengths. So
Mhm.
it was just really, really interesting. And I just thought it was a really nice quiz to do because it really does take into account that we are all different. We all have different strengths. I had to laugh at my result though, because it was like, communication, empathy, like a lot of like I was like, wow, mine just says I have a lot of feelings. Like responsibility, communication, empathy. It was like a lot of like really like people focused kind
Mhm.
of, you know, strengths, whereas some other people got some really like organizational ones like and stuff. I just thought it was really interesting.
Well, I think empathy is really important, like, as a leader, because I guess this is just my opinion from, people who have experience who do not have that. I think empathy is very important when you have a team of just different individuals that you're working with. I found that to be some of my best leaders or my best manager, supervisor. I wouldn't say boss, just because I think boss has a negative connotation unless you are a boss.
Yeah.
In a negative way, but, to me, I think a leader definitely has a more empathetic side, but yeah, that's very good. Now that we've kind of talked about your consulting side, unless you had some more that you wanted to give off before we branch into your biology side.
Yeah, like I mean the consulting side, I all I would say is that if you're a person who really loves to do GIS on desktop every day, like you're really into like going into pro and making maps, consultancy is maybe not for you because as a consultant, your job is to guide other people along on their GIS journey. So that might be a whole new GIS deployment. It might be honing in on a specific um kind of data modeling, or it might be honing in on a specific delivery of an app or, a kind of web GIS that they need to deliver, either because it's a government mandate or because they're an NGO that's just got good data and they want to share it with the public. But yeah, if you're really into being the on the ground person, doing the analysis, making the maps yourself, consultancy is probably not for you because it's actually it's a quite hands-off approach in that way, should I say. You're the enabler. You're the person guiding them through making the right decisions. And, you're the point of contact for, someone who's going through maybe a reorganization, or maybe they're going through a data migration or something like this. And you're the person that they come to, for what should I do in this scenario? What should I do in that scenario? So you're just helping them go along with meeting their GIS needs. But it's very satisfying when you get to do that and do it well with people and you see the efficiency of their systems completely change. So it's definitely an interesting career. But I feel like in consultancy, that's why the goalposts move so much, because you're actually not a specialist at all. You're a complete generalist. So the more things that keep getting added in, the more you kind of have to take on and learn and adapt all the time. And something that was really popular 4 years ago might not be used at all anymore now. So it's just interesting in that way. Uh, but yeah, that's it about consultancy, I think.